Let's see. Okay, it looks like I'm all set up and ready to go. I actually did a few fixes on the separations. There's now volume, so you can hear what I'm talking about. Hopefully Shannon is getting on here soon, and I'm going to mention this a couple of times, but Shannon is going to be helping me moderate and answer questions so that I can focus on getting this blossom finished. But anyhow, I'm really excited to get this going some more. How fun it is to get this finished. So, excuse me. I'm just going to give everyone time to get on board, and we'll go from there. So let me just double check some settings. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Wow. That's really got a lot of color in there. I'm pretty happy with that. Have a lot to do. Well, not a lot. I have a couple things to do. Hi, Jojo. My throat is feeling better today. Thank you, Jeannie, but I have a little bit of a cough. So I ran up to Sprouts and got a whole bunch of herbal teas, and I've got some throat sprays, and so hopefully that will stop anything from coming up. I really hope. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to go fill up my tea, and I will be right back. All right, I'm back. got some tea, some nice herbal throat tea. I think I already said this, but I went up to Sprouts and just bought all the yogi teas for respiratory health, so I think I'll be okay today. Might have a little cough or two, but not bad. Shannon, yay, you're here. So let's see, 151, and I'm going to say this a few times. Shannon is going to be helping me moderate and answer questions so that I can concentrate on getting those blossoms done. So I'm gonna say this a few times. We should all give Shannon Hicks a huge round of applause. She's very knowledgeable. She's actually really good with words. Not only is she a good friend, but she is well spoken. So even when I tend to ramble, Shannon really gets right to the heart of things. So I'm not only grateful that she's a friend, but that she's helping me out. So that's all good. So I hope everybody had fun painting. I did see that some people were posting. Shannon B, she had posted some of her background, and I think Claudette had posted some of her background, and so I was pretty excited to see that. And so far, I think everybody's doing really well. I'm happy with how mine is turning out, and I think everything that I've seen so far, everybody's doing a really good job. So, I thought I might give it another. It's 1:53, so let's just. I'm gonna take it easy for a minute and wait for everybody else or anybody else who's going to be showing up. And if you all need to ask me some questions, now would be a good time. Just throw them on there, and we'll go from there. So let's see. I think I showed everybody last night what it was looking like. Have this nice soft background going on. Pretty excited how it turned out. And now it's going to come the fun part. Once we get the main part of those blossoms filled in, then we can go about adding in all those little details that really make the difference. One thing I was talking about yesterday was this idea of halation, and if Shilpi, my friend who's from India and lives in Austria, hopefully if she shows up, she's really good at science and biology. But halation is that effect that you get when you're standing outside and you're looking at a plant or a flower, and the sun is kind of behind it, and you see this faint glow around the edges of the leaves and the flower, and it's usually the complementary color of what's behind it. So I use that a lot in my paintings, and I really feel that that is what gives it that extra boost and makes it separate the foreground from the background, yet still soften it a little bit. And that is a hard thing to kind of explain, but as you watch me paint more, hopefully you're kind of understanding what that means. So, okay, let's see. Jojo, I'm starting over because of my super granulating ultramarine. I'm thinking about using phthalo blue, but red shade. Good choice. Phthalo blue red shade is the alternative to ultramarine blue. It is a synthetic, inorganic pigment. So that's a good choice. And you just have to be careful with it because it's very, very strong, especially on backgrounds. It can sometimes tend to overwhelm. So make sure that you rinse your brush really well. So that might help you. But yep, that's great. And it's a very permanent and it's very staining. So that's also a good choice. And oh, there you go. Shannon said it. if you don't want that granulation. Again, the granulation is different across all the brands. I'm trying to think if I have that sheet. I'll be right back. No, I don't. I only did some samples for the Phthalo blue, but I will do one on the Ultramarine so that you can see the difference between, say, the one I use, M. Graham, Schminke. There's almost every reputable brand carries Ultramarine blue, but how much pigment they use, what kind of carriers that they use in their color has a lot to do with how the color comes out, whether it's really saturated, really granulating, how it flows onto the paper. And you know, while we're waiting, this is a good time for me to grab my Hillary Page Guide to Watercolor Paints. So this is what it looks like. This is actually a signed copy. It's so wonderful. So Hillary Page, she's from England. She's an artist, and she's really great. This guide right here has every single pigment and what manufacturers use it, how they mix it into their colors, and so forth. So I am going to try to find the Ultramarine blue section so I can explain to you what I am talking about. And you may think that this is not important, but it really is. So give me just a second here. It's probably towards the end because it has Ultramarine. Why am I not finding it in here? Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, so what page is it on? Okay, 99 to 100. Aha, so here we go. And then I'm gonna switch down so you can see this. Oh, hold on, let me ask, Shannon's asking, Debbie, when was this book published? It was published a while ago, but she does updates. Let me see. Woo, 1996, but she actually sent me an update just a few years ago. But honestly, very infrequently do chemical companies, not the paint companies, the chemical companies, very rarely do they come out with a new pigment. So any book that has this type of explanation, and I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about here. Let me just up the, there we go. So any book here, let me zoom in, that has all the pigments in there, all those colors are pretty standard. I mean, obviously over the last 20 years or so, we have a lot more pigments that have become available. I'm showing you this so you can see how all these different, this is all ultramarine blue. This ultramarine blue is blocks. We've got Holbein, My Mary, Rembrandt, let's see, Ultramarine Blue Deep by Blocks. Let's see, there's Grumbacher, Van Gogh. They even have the student. She even does a comparison of the student version of Winsor Newton, which is Cotman, and the regular professional Winsor Newton. And there's the M. Graham, and here's a Daniel Smith brand. And so what this does, all these charts, is she's done all the work for you. And she'll sometimes give little notes on here, like Daniel Smith's version is strongly staining. She doesn't talk too much about the granulation in there. For instance, let's see, Winsor Newton Cotman, which is the student grade, it's a tad weak and rather chalky. And then she goes over here and she talks about M. Graham and Company, the one that I use. She says here, sinks into the paper. She doesn't care for it very much. She's got 1 star, I give it 3. But its permanence and light fastness are excellent. And she shows you how it kind of blends out and how it kind of spreads. Like you can look up at this version, you can see that it kind of wiggles and oozles out into the paper. You can see Daniel Smith's kind of softly blends out. Here's Holbein's. And regardless, anyhow, the point I'm making is that this is just a great book for showing how one pigment with all these different manufacturers gives you different results. So there you go. This is a great book. You can still get it. What a knowledgeable, just very wonderful person Hillary is. So it goes through everything. Any type of pigments you want in here. And she tries to stick with the single pigment colors too. So you might want to think about getting that book. Absolutely lovely. Oh, good. You have the Daniel Smith. Now, this is the funny thing. I prefer M. Graham. I just think it's very saturated, and I think it's the least granulating of all the colors. But you know what? That's what's great about having so many different manufacturers, is that you get to decide which one you like. Let's see. So anyhow, I just kind of wanted to show you that. And anybody who missed it, obviously you can just go back and you can rewatch that little section. And let's see who else has shown up. Shannon B. Hi, Shannon. And good. So I'm glad you got on it. And I hope that you saw my comments about your background. So before I get started on this, finishing up some areas in here and getting started on this blossom, I want to talk just briefly about the background. And when I was talking to Shannon Hicks, who's going to be helping me moderate and answer questions, she was talking to me about how buttery and soft everything looks. And I just want to say that, if you haven't done backgrounds before, they take time. It takes patience and it takes time. And even though on some old paintings, I always felt like I did a great job on the foreground images, I can't tell you how many times I ripped it up just because of the background. And that leads me into something else. Why I start the backgrounds first. They can be difficult. They can be challenging. You might get frustrated. I would rather do that first and have it fail and start over than spend weeks working on my flowers. So don't give up. Don't give up. You will learn. It just takes some time. Rome wasn't built in a day, and I certainly took quite a long time to get those backgrounds down. Now, the other thing you may be having trouble with is your choice of brushes. If you are struggling with your backgrounds, switch brushes. You may want to have one of these very really nice natural hair brushes. They hold a lot of water and they're really great on your backgrounds. And there's so many different kinds. You've got your hockey brushes, and they're kind of flat, and I think it's ox hair, but it does a really good job of laying down the water and depositing pigment. So it just may be a matter of switch a brush, try a different brush. Maybe try those areas on a separate piece of paper before you actually get started on your area. I mean, there's nothing wrong with flipping over an old painting that you don't care for very much, as long as it is the same texture and the same way. Flip it over. Just practice this area on something else. So those are some tips, some things that might help you. So try some different brushes if you're still struggling on that background. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back into this area. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And what am I going to use? Okay. I'm going to use my very, very small brush. This is a 5/0. I'll hold it against there. You can barely see the tip. But what I kind of left off yesterday and what I really wanted to focus more on was that halation that I just talked about earlier. And if you missed that, you know, you can rewatch it. But basically, halation is when things are backlit and you're seeing that beautiful glow around the outside. So I had already put a little bit of yellow on there yesterday and a tiny, tiny bit of that reddish orange. And you can already see how just a little tiny bit just changes the whole effect of that edge. And I try not to put it on evenly, like one even stroke. You know, I try to, just a good way to do this is add just a little bit of water along that edge. Then pick up, see, I kept my orange that I made yesterday, and I'm going to pick just a teeny tiny bit up. And I'm just going right along the edge, just a hair. And let that blend out a little bit. And now you can see it's really showing. So now when your eye looks at that leaf, instead of just having this solid white area, your eye gets kind of drawn to that red and kind of that orangish yellow against that green and that blue background. And so complementary colors are helping your eyes see that is very, very saturated. So thinking that looks really good. I need to move some stuff around here. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing up in this little area. I'm using my very small brush. I just added some water. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. And I can. Every once in a while it doesn't want to zoom in. Okay, so I'm just adding, let me start out with the yellow. Let me just add a little bit of yellow first. Right along that edge. Just very faint. Don't overdo it. Now I'm going to come over. And this is hard unless you have a really small brush. I'm just trying to get most of that color off. Not putting it everywhere. And I think I'll leave that just like that. And I'm going to go with my number 2 And I'm going to finish up this little area where it's kind of got yellows and coming down a little bit, grabbing yellow. Just trying to build up some of these values that I don't think are strong. I'm still using my very small brush, and I'm going to pick up some blue. I'm going to come over here back to that yellow. Now, I don't want to overdo it right here at this top, so my color is very watery. So I just kind of I'm just kind of rinsing my brush and pulling that color down a little bit. Now I want to come over with, that was too much yellow. So I'm just going to take my brush and kind of wick it back up and spread it around. Now I need a little bit more blue. So that was perfect. I'm going to get a bigger brush. I go to, oh, I'm sorry, that brush was actually my 2-aught, and this is my 0. I'm going to get some very, very, very watery blue, drop it in there. Now I'm going to pick up some red. I just put a lot of water on my brush. I'm going to grab some yellow because as I was looking, I noticed some yellow coming down in that area. Back to my 5-aught. I'm going to pick up some of this violet and add it right up into this area so I can darken that value. Maybe a little bit of red. Oop. Maybe more violet. Now some blue. There we go. Now it made a nice little highlight right in there. Try to soften that a bit. Adding a little bit of yellow. Now it's starting to come together. And look at how everywhere I have a little bit of yellow, I have a little bit of blue, I have a little bit of red, and all those colors together are just now making it what it is. So bigger brush, now I'm on to my number 2, and I'm just dropping some yellow down in these areas. And now I'm going to go pick up some ultramarine blue. Just a little bit more. Okay, let's zoom out. Look at that. I'm so happy. I think I need some more red though. Let's drop in some red right up here. Pull it down a little bit. Now you can really see how the yellow and the blue and the red are all combining. It's nice and soft. They're just beautiful blends. And again, I know I said this earlier, and you know what? Use whatever blue you prefer. Again, the Phthalo Blue red shade is a really good alternative to ultramarine blue, and I love it and use it. But I just think there's something magical about ultramarine blue. Something just about the way it blends with that Quin Rose and the Nickle Azo yellow. Let me zoom back in. Now you can kind of see right there how the petal, that little petal right there on this blossom, has stopped looking flat, adding in the important details to me. Helps bring form and shape. I guess those are the same terms, but look at how I'm just lightly, lots of water, adding in some of that ultramarine blue down there. Can add a little bit more over in this area. Now some more red. It's just so soft, and I just love these. I love this color combination. I'm picking up some yellow. It's my favorite. You can just do so much with this. Very deep, dark paintings, just like you saw yesterday, and just gentle color blends. I'm picking up my smaller brush because I want to deepen that shadow. So I'm just very lightly just picking up a little bit of blue. Now I'm going to drop in some red. Oh my gosh, this tea is helping so much. I was afraid I was going to be coughing this whole time. Okay, I think that is just starting to look so beautiful. You know, even though I'm here and I'm live to just even some people that I don't know, and I guess it may be kind of weird, but I just feel so much joy, even when I'm teaching like this. There's just something about when I look at all these little areas, and I feel like they're like their own little world. This little area is its own little world. Ooh, you know what I need to do? Build up that yellowish, darkish spot right in here. So I'm going to grab some blue. Isn't painting just fun? Okay, wait, let's do a little bit more yellow. You know, I'm going to pick up some of that blue and some of that orange that I've made right there. And I am going to turn this a little bit. And I don't like that little flat area. So what I'm going to do is I am going to reshape it just a hair. And now I can see I need a little bit more red. Ah! I went right into that too far in, but that's okay. That actually looks a little better. I'm going to go a little bit more. Now, more yellow. This is pretty thick yellow. That looks a lot better. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to go to my 0 now, and I'm going to pick up... Okay, so how my palette is now, this is when I love doing the details because I have all these little dried areas of mixed color, so I can pick up just exactly the amount I need. And this is just on the dry paper. It's such a small area. See how it comes up into that red, and that's just what I want. I was a little bummed we didn't get any snow, but Flagstaff, which is very much higher than we are, they got, I think, over a foot of snow. It's pretty amazing, and we really, really need that. We're in a terrible drought, and so I hope that helps. But I was just looking out the window, and it's so cloudy and looks like it's getting ready to snow. It just looks lovely. Now, did you notice how when I started darkening up these colors, how it made that little white highlight really stand out? See how I went right into the red with that green? And it kind of now is kind of melding the two areas together. And let's see. See how that blended so well? I'm just adding some green into that red, and really all it is just I'm actually taking that red and just adding those two colors, which all three together are making a very dark value. Let's see, how about a little bit more blue? I have some pretty thick blue there. Let's pick up some of that burnt sienna that I made yesterday. Just add a little bit more of that. Maybe pick up some of that green. And now I'm just going to soften that edge right there. So far, so good. I'm pretty happy with that. I feel like there's a lot going on now. The only thing I think I need to do is I need to come over into this area and add in a little bit more of that blue-green. I was having some trouble with those two edges meeting right there. I'm probably overthinking it, so I'll just leave those. And now I'm going to go ahead and wet this whole area right here. And I'm going to start out with some blue this time. See how I'm just dropping it in there, just added a little bit more water. You know, when you are painting these areas, it's good to look around, you know, and it's to stop things from being boring with just one color. And I'm sure there are people that say, you know, well, I don't want to just paint with 3 colors. It's like, where are you going to get that vibrancy and those colors and that harmony? But you can see that some areas are a little bit warmer, especially right in there. I'm sorry, cooler. Some areas are a little bit warmer. And then you've got these areas down here, some cools and some warms. And somehow all 3 of those colors they get together and they create magic. Now, one thing I don't want to do on this little area is add yellow yet. I want it to dry, then I can add some reds, and then I can add some yellows because I want to get this effect right here. I don't want them to all blend. I don't want the yellow and the blue to blend together and make a green. So as I add these colors slowly, that's how I'm starting to create those nice beautiful blends without them. So in other words, instead of seeing a green because there's yellow and blue in there, you're seeing the yellow alone, the blue alone, and the red alone. And you just have this beautiful flowing color. So I'm really happy with how this is turning out. One thing I think I want to do, now that those areas are dry, I'm going to go get my little 5/0 brush, that very, very tiny brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some of my red and I'm going to come in here and very lightly add some lines, all those little tiny veins that you see. You don't have to. but I like to, because I think that really adds. Hopefully I didn't add too much there. I'm going to make a really watery mix. Very, very watery. Not watery enough. Maybe a little bit more. See how it's building a little bit of texture in there, and I actually think I need more blue. See, that line is too harsh. That's what you want to avoid too if you're going to make any sort of like little veins. You want them to look like they're kind of fading in and out. You don't want them looking like, you know, they're all the same width. I'm going to add a little bit, some of that rose down in this area. Now a little bit of the yellow. And picking up a little bit of blue right along here. And you can really see how that's really starting to come together. I'm going to do the same thing up in here. See how I kind of covered up some of that lighter value there? Well, one thing I can do is, let's get more of the blue in there. One thing I can do is surround it with a little bit of color. And now I've brought out that highlight, and I'm adding a little bit of those veins in there. And because I'm putting these on last and they're kind of sitting on top of that paper a little bit, I'm going to bring some down from this area. Honestly, you're really seeing now how I paint. I don't think I've put this much detail in some of my live streams. Just a tiny bit more red. Just a little bit of yellow following those little veins. Ooh, and then I really like those tiny, tiny little dots that I'm seeing. You know, it might be, I don't know, like maybe how when you see when a petal gets marred, and then there's just like a little tiny brown spot. And then if I drop some water on that, it'll kind of blend that out a little bit. Now I'm going to take some yellow, go right around that edge. And add a little bit more yellow right up in this area, because I think it needed that. And I'm going to take my scrubber brush, my tiny one. I'm just going to pick out some of that color. That looks a little better. Now for a little bit more red. And a little bit more of that blue. Just trying to push that behind that petal a little bit. That one's almost dry. So I think what I'll do is come over into this area, but I'll give that a second to dry. See if, is there anything, it looks like Shannon's got everything under control. Thank you so much, Shannon. And I'm going to say this again for anybody that's just now coming in. Shannon Hicks, and you will see that as her name on there. She is kind of helping moderate it and helping me answer questions so that I can focus on painting. So we all need to give Shannon a huge, huge thank you, because that's allowing me to just stay in the groove right now and paint. So I love that she's helping me with that. And if anybody didn't hear this earlier, she's so great with writing, and she knows exactly what to say and how to say it. Whereas I just, well, tend to ramble. Oh, you know what I just saw? I completely missed that. There's a beautiful little area there where that red kind of comes down. And I'll add a little bit of blue to that. All right. So far, so good. One more little spot. Okay, here's one of the other scrubber brushes that I use. So this is just a super, super cheap oil painting brush. And so what I did was, well, broke off the tip or the handle because they're always so long. And then, excuse me, hold on a sec. I took tape and I wound it around the tip tightly. And then I took a really sharp pair of scissors and very close to the ferrule just chopped it off. And I use this when I need to get into really small, tight areas. That's one right there and right here. I just wanted to pull out that little highlight right there. And it's also right here. I kind of lost it there. I came in a little bit too far with the background. So I just wanted to soften that up. Okay. For all intents and purposes, I think that's pretty much done. I want to back out. Okay, let's see. Ah! Doesn't that blossom just look alive? Honestly, it looks like that sun's coming down and it's just hitting it right there on that edge. In fact, I see one other little spot. But it just looks like it's coming down, and you can see how this front petal is folding forward. It's just so beautiful. It's just... It was worth all that time that I spent on all those little details. And now look what happened once I added just a little bit more and just a little bit more red. Look what happened to this area. See how it made that little highlight right there kind of stand out? And it's just everything's so soft I just think that that is perfect. I'm very happy with that. So now you can see why I take some time. In fact, let's zoom that out a little bit more, because honestly, out of all the tutorials I've done live streaming, this is what I am most proud of, how all this has really turned out. It's just beautiful. There we go. It got stuck there for a sec. I think I've solved the problem. I'm using my other program. I'm going to be using my other program, but I didn't want to mess anything up. So I'm just continuing on with my other one. Okay, I see a big orange thing in there. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Wow. Thank you, Mary. I think if that's what it means, that was so sweet of you. Thank you. Wow. I really appreciate that. That was so nice. To be honest, I had no idea that you could do that. Here I have my new YouTube channel and I didn't know you could do that. Aw, that was very kind. Thank you. Aw, it was very nice. Okay, let's get started on this big one, finally. Let's see. Okay, the first thing I think I'm going to do is I want to get some of these yellows put in. So I'm going to grab some yellow, no water, because these areas are going to end up really dark. So I'm just going to add yellow. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Is that too close? Nope, I think that's good. No, that didn't help. I'm going to turn my light down a little bit so we don't have so much reflection going on. I think that's a little bit better. Again, I'm not wetting it first. But I am using a lot of water with my yellow. I'm going to add a lot of yellow, because that little area under there is going to be very, very dark. It's going to be around like that dark. And let's just add a little bit more water on that, on this leaf, because that's going to be very dark too. I'm going to add even more yellow. I'm going to go to a smaller brush, my 0, pick up some thicker yellow, and drop it right in those areas where it looks really, really dark. And same right along this spot. And that's going to be so pretty in there when we get that dark rosy magenta look. Okay, so I'm not seeing a whole lot of yellow in there, but guess what? I did fix my separations, so I'm going to quickly show you those again. Here we go. Hopefully everybody should be able to hear me. I've got the sound on. So look at that area. I've kind of blown up a little bit. The area right underneath this main blossom, and you can see how solid that yellow is and how much yellow is actually in that little, what did Shelby say? It's a stamen and a something, something else. Can't exactly remember, but you know, you can see that there's not a whole lot of yellow up in these upper petals, but this is what a separation looks like. And here would be the magenta. So you can definitely see that down underneath those flowers. Look at how much red there really is. So Gosh, I'm so bummed that you didn't get to hear me talk about that yesterday, but and Mary is saying, you can hear me now, yay! Oh, and Shilpi says the carpals. Okay, so those carpals you can see already. If I go back to the yellow, they've got a lot of yellow in them and a lot of magenta. Or I'm sorry, rose, red. I said magenta because that is actually what they call it when you are printing in a print shop. And there's the blue separation, which printers call cyan. And you could see that, obviously, check out that leaf right under the big blossom. You can see that it's got a lot of dark, I shouldn't say dark, it has a lot of cyan in there. So these are just, this is a great way to get your mind to focus on how you paint with a 3-color palette. You know, for instance, you keep hearing me say, I'm going to add some yellow. I'm going to add some red. I'm going to add some blue. So this is really great for kind of wrapping your mind around how you see what color dominates in an area, whether it's the petal or the branch. So I have to thank Mary for that. Mary's wonderful. She was the one that suggested this alternate Photoshop program because Photoshop does not make it easy. That Affinity Pro just separated everything out wonderfully. So, okay, now back to this little area. I'm going to back it out a little bit because I want to go up and add and start adding a little bit of the yellow on that first layer. So I just want to get my flower in focus, try to get off as many of those lines as I can. All right, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and, am I going to wet the whole thing? Let me think here for a minute. I am going to go ahead and wet the whole thing. If I have some yellow go into an area, okay, say this spot right here, I'll just try to, let's try to keep it away from there, or at least from allowing too much yellow. I should say that instead. I'm just going right over that masking fluid. Because honestly, when we looked at that separation, there's still a little bit of yellow in there. Oh, and you know what's going to be fun? Wait till we get to adding a little bit of yellow right against shadows. Wait till you see what happens when we do that. So I'm just getting some water down. I love painting with yellow first. The pros of that are that yellow is such a light valued color that there's not a lot that you can screw up. So it's almost like another form of a warm-up. But it does help establish values. I'm going to leave that one alone, and I'll just do that separately. I'll get the yellow here first, and then I'll go back to there, and then over to that little petal. Okay, I'm just going to kind of lean it to the side, see where I missed. little bit up in there. Okay, it looks pretty wet. I'm not going to worry about exactly how soaked in it's going to be. How did I even miss that area? There we go. It's looking pretty good. If I tip it, I'm getting a little bit of water running, not much. It's going to really sink in here. But I'm going to go ahead and start adding some of that yellow. Just going to make sure that it's very watery. And I'm going to start in this area. See how light? I mean, you can almost barely see it. I should have erased that line a little bit better, and I didn't, so I'll have to address that. Boy, isn't that going to be a great gray to have to create right in there? It's going to look beautiful. It's hard to believe when you first look at this, you don't think about all those details that you really start seeing till you paint. And you know what? There actually is just a tiny bit of yellow right in this area. A little bit right down in here. I'm going to add water to this petal. This time, I'm going to add a little bit more yellow. It's always a little bit hard to see when the water is reflecting. Now as that water is sinking in, I can look and see if there's any place that needs it just a little bit heavier. I'm just trying to use a really, really light touch. And that obviously is going to dry much lighter. And right along in this area. See how it didn't make much difference that I didn't do each petal separately. Actually, I see one little spot right down in here that is going to have a lot of yellow. Just kind of cleaned my brush off just so I could spread that out a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to come over and hit this petal. There isn't a whole lot of yellow in there. Aha, now that's pretty dry. So now I can go ahead and just wet this whole area. I'm going to use a smaller brush. I'm going to go back to my number 2. This is a good exercise too in learning how to see color. Again, just like those separations, breaking everything down into 3 colors. Okay, now let's come over to here. Hopefully you saw that. I just realized it was out of focus. Or I was off camera. Okay, let's add a little bit more yellow right there. And there's yellow down in here. Now I'm going to kind of go over that blue just a bit and just drop it in, or the yellow just a little bit. Okay, now I can actually, dry this off and we can get those other colors on. So let me zoom out. You know, before I turn the hairdryer on, I hope now that you can really see the difference between those edges that are a little rough and a little sharp, and with how I came in here and softened all those edges yet have color on the outside of them. That's what makes the difference between having that background and then those foreground images, whether it be a still life or a flower or just really anything, and how it stops them from looking cut out. Okay. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, it's all thanks to Mary having that. And I can actually do a quick short one unless, Mary, you're saying that you can find how to make the color separations. It wasn't hard, but if you're not used to a photo program, yeah, you might need to find that. So big thanks to Mary for that. So while I'm drying here, and I was going to talk a little bit more today, obviously, about the branch. So you can see, to me, that branch needs a little bit more color. And you may be thinking, wait a minute, how are you going to put more color in there? It's already dark. But it needs some red on the top, and it needs to be a little bit, have more yellow and red so it can warm it up a little bit, like right in that area. So I will address that also. Oh, and Shilpy, thank you. So that little area, the carpals. Boy, I'm learning so much. Almost dry. I should have given you a word of caution. Just be careful when you are drawing and you have masking fluid on. You can really cause that masking fluid to just adhere to the paper. So that's why I kind of put my finger on it. All right, looking good. Okay, now let's go ahead. Let's add that red in there. But let's go back to that separation and let's look at it. So hopefully you can see I'm going to be adding a lot of red right in that area, right up along, let's see, the area that's, sorry, I'm talking like you can see where I'm pointing. The area that's underneath that big forward petal, you can see that there is just a lot of red under there, and just a little tiny bit up in those petals. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on adding that yellow. I just thought that might be helpful to see. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep that separated, because I want a nice dividing line right on there. I don't want too much red going into these other areas. I want to make sure I have plenty control. I'm just refilling, you know, I think I need to dry that just a little bit more. And hopefully, excuse me, you remember what I was saying yesterday about once you're done with the hair dryer, let it cool off and then feel it with the back of your hand. Clean hand with no oils. If it still feels cool, it's not dried all the way. So. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Let's see. Where should I start? I think I will go ahead and start with this big petal right there. So let me zoom in again. Ah, it's so neat with my new camera that I can zoom in and out. All right, here we go. I am going to take my number 6, and I'm going to try to be very careful. Let's move this down a little bit. That way we don't get so much reflection from the lights. I'm actually going to pick up a smaller brush so I can get right in that little tiny area that's tucked under that forward petal. And I feel like that's important because that little area right there is pretty cool. Not a lot of red in it. And I may have said this yesterday, But if you have trouble keeping a straight line, whether it's with water or paint, hold your brush lightly so that you can get your hand closer to your paper. Kind of lay it to the side and use just 2 fingers and then kind of controlling it with that finger, your pointer finger, and just lay the brush on the side and you'll get a much nicer line. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and keep my, what did I say, my number 2. And this is just a very, very watery mixture. Now here's a good example of, you can see me moving my brush around on the paper surface. You can see that bead of water, and then the minute I lift, it spreads it. So how I control where that goes is I'll go up into an area and I'll bring it back down, because I don't want to leave right in this area. If I just lifted my brush, it leaves a giant spot of water or color, and I don't want that. So now I'm going to wick that back up, pull it down, being very careful. I don't want to have to try to lift anything out of that little tiny edge. So now I'm going to have a little bit thicker water. So again, I'm kind of get some more color. And instead of lifting my brush up off right there, I'm going to start this way and work my way back. Oopsie, I dropped a little bit. There, I dropped some more, and let it drop right there instead of up in those areas. But that's okay, because right there is some of that red. Some more red. Noticed I didn't quite have enough. See how I'm using my brush to control where that paint goes? First thing I did is I came right up against that petal, and then I just pulled it back down. Almost like, hey, stay here. I want you down in this area. I don't want you up there. So I'm pulling that color back down. Same here. Can you see how I'm pushing the paint right into that corner? So my brush is going that direction. And even if I do drop some of it there, I can always then pick it back up and push it down into that area. And that's what I mean when I talk about, and I'm going to drill this into your heads, getting control of water. When you have control of water, you can use that ability to create some amazing effects. And this applies to whether you paint loose or tight, or whether you're using, or whether you're painting cityscapes or landscapes. It's all about how much control you have over that water. So I'm turning this a little bit because I want to get some of that red right in there. And one of the reasons why I was jabbering a little bit is because it's giving that water a chance to really sink into the paper. So now I can pick up some thicker color, and I want to turn it so that in one smooth sweep, I can get that red right along that edge. And so I want to hold the paper where my hand will naturally turn. So here I go. Ah! Woohoo! Okay, that was perfect. I feel like I need to soften it up a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm picking up some of that color and water and just pulling it down. Yay! I'm so happy. Woo! I'm just glad that that worked well on camera. I'm going to turn it again though. And I'm going to start right in this area. Hope I can achieve that same thing and get it a little bit darker because I started running out of color as I was heading down. So I'm just going to, like an airplane landing, touchdown, paint. Now I think I need a little bit more. And even within this little area, there's little stripes of paint. So see how I did that? Same idea. And I'm going to turn it back around. And now, let me see if I can zoom in on that just a little bit more. Okay, maybe, can I go more? I can, nice. Okay. So now, look, this is the difference between having a weird line. I'm just going to get a piece of scrap paper here. Between having a line that's soft and I waited till the perfect moment when I knew that that water was going to accept that line, instead of blending it out like it did here, it was thicker paint. And I was able to draw it down and it was just able to blend a little bit. Look at how much better that is and how much nicer if instead on dry paper, you just had done this. Can you see the difference? This is just kind of well, it looks like you just took a pencil and just drew a line. So now you can see the difference and what happens when you have that perfect moment of that water and you know exactly what it's going to do. You know how much it's going to absorb. So I'm going to actually, let's see, go back, get some, just a little tiny bit more. Okay, just darkening that up a little bit more. And the interesting thing is there's going to be a little bit of blue right in that. I mean, I can see the blue in that area. But I'm pretty happy with how it's looking so far. And when I get that little, when I wet it again, after it dries and I wet it again, and then I can do the blue, then I can do the same thing. I'm going to turn it. And I'm going to pull that line right when I know the water is at the perfect moment. So, all right, here we go. What am I doing? I got that. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry. Let's zoom out. Okay, and look at that. That line now looks real compared to had you just drawn it or, you know, taken your brush and just made, you know, just a plain line. Although I'm pretty impressed with that. I very smoothly got a nice curve in there. But we wanted that to feather out just a little bit. Okay, so now let's go up to that area again. And I'm going to add, let me think for a minute. It seems like this edge right here is a petal that's kind of like, the edge is kind of curved, so it's almost like a boat. So I'm gonna avoid, oops, let's see. Sometimes I forget. Let me know if I forget to change focus to manual so that you see this in focus all the time and it doesn't go to my hand and try to focus on my hand. So let me know if I forget to do that. I'll try to glance up. Okay, so I'm missing that edge. And this very bright white edge too. So I'm just gonna hit the whole inside. Let's make sure I got all of it. Nope, completely missed this area. All right, back to my smaller brush, my number 2, and let's just, oh good, it's staying. Oh, good. Okay. Just the right amount of water sunk in. See again how I'm pulling that color back. I'm pulling it back into that area. Let's zoom in a little bit more. And there really isn't a whole lot of red in other places, is there? There's a little bit right along there. I'm just pulling it down. Pulling it down into that little corner. Aha, and I see a little bit up in this area. Now, of course, I'm going to make my gray. And that's going to, once I mix my gray and I do that as that last coat, then that yellow and the red are going to kind of come through those colors. Okay, let me get an eraser. And I'm not going to get all that up because I already went over it with water. So let me zoom out again. Oh, I can't wait to use my other program so that's not sticking. Let's see how it's looking. It's getting there. These petals are going to go pretty quick once I've got those initial washes on, and then I can go back in wet on dry. So let me get this dry a little bit. Okay, so now for this petal, and I think what I'm gonna do on this petal, let me zoom back in. Move my water over a little bit. Okay, there we go. So how am I gonna do this petal? I think what I'm gonna do is each little section. So I'm not going to wet it first. Just picking up some red. Now some water. Maybe a little more red. A little bit of red in that. There's a little edge right there that kind of folds over. But there's not a whole lot. There's a little bit down here. And again, I didn't wet it beforehand. It's a small area. I can just blend that color out and just use a little bit of water. I think I can go over here, drop some of that color in here. What I'm gonna do is I am gonna wet this area a little bit as I want to get that red in there. So just a watery mix of the red. Ah, can you see that little spot of color? It's like, darn it. Okay. And pushing it down into that little fold. Maybe a little bit less watery. And okay, I'm going to leave that alone. Now I'm going to come down into these areas and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not right in this area. I'm not going to add any water. They're so small. I'm just going to add just again another watery mix. Same here, right in this area. I'm going to let it blend out. And a little bit over. Boy, I really messed that, that petal up. Need to get that corner in there of the background. And then right around that little area. There's actually a lot of blue down in this area. Okay, now I can go back over this spot with some of that red. I'm going to zoom out. I am going to have to dry it, otherwise I don't want something to bleed over, so I actually have a better idea. This will save me some time here. I'll let those dry and I'll go ahead and we'll get this little area down here finished. So I'm going to kind of handle it the same way that I handled this area. So let's zoom in Okay. I'm going to pick up some red. Make sure I have a nice, yes, it's dry. The paper is dry. It's a tiny area. I'm going to grab some of this burnt sienna I made because it's a combination of the red, yellow, and blue. And the blue is what I need to get that value really dark. So I'll start with this first. And a lot more red. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. Pick up some yellow. Okay, let that dry. Trying to figure where I can go. I think I can go over here. I'm going to stick with, let's see, what do I want to stick with? My number 2. I'm going to go back to that. And no. I am going to go to my 0 because I want to get right up in this little area. And yes, I just put water down there. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to soften and make like that little water dam so that it just spreads out carefully and it doesn't touch that little area. Once I get the other colors in there, you won't be able to see that little line. No. See, I made the paint very thin. Now it's almost water. Just pushing it back into that area. Maybe a little bit of that burnt sienna. Now a lot of red. See how it's spreading a little bit. It's not, could be better, but by the time I get those darker colors in there, you won't see that at all. And it stops it from bleeding off into that area. So just need to get that value a little bit darker. I feel like I can come back in here, get this a little bit darker. Trying to be careful around that that line, that beautiful fold. And then I have to get some blue in those areas. Just kind of feathering out that red a little bit. Okay, now I can dry again. Let's get this dried. Let me back out. Okay, let's zoom out and take a look. Boy, you can really see how those are really starting to take shape. I want to get some blue on now, so just want to make sure it's really dry. Might need to go a little bit more. What's great about when you take time to just stop and dry your painting, I always notice things, like I'm looking around and going, look at how cool this petal is, how important it's going to be to keep that petal cool, because obviously the sun isn't able to shine on it, and so it's getting its coolness from these leaves. I'm seeing like a little bit of green and blue in there, and that's going to be very important for the overall feel of that blossom. I think I'll go ahead and start with that petal. I'm going to zoom back in. Okay, I'm going to use my 0. And I'm not going to put water on this area. Just very light color. Very watery. And then I'm just going to kind of blend it out a little bit. Just a damp brush. Just making sure I didn't miss any areas. Like right along. See how it gets much easier to blend out your colors once you've gone over and over that surface with water? Now, haven't done any red in this in this big petal right in the center. But it's such a small amount of red. I'm not going to wet it. Just making a very watery mixture. And I'm going to start at the bottom here. Just swiping at it quickly. And then I'm picking up some water and just blending it out. Clean water. Actually, I do need to clean my water. Maybe even a little bit more red. Right down in that area. Okay. I am going to leave this alone because I want to get that blue in there. So let me dry that again quickly so we can start adding in those blues and grays. Let me zoom out. It's coming together. It's getting there. Oh, I got back up, manual. Okay, now for the fun part. We are going to, I'm going to get rid of a little bit of that in the center right there. All right. A sip of my tea. And I'm going to wipe some of that up. Actually, I'm going to wipe most of it up. I'm going to add a lot of blue. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore the phthalo blues, but my gosh, there's just something so stunning about ultramarine blue. It's so beautiful. Okay, now I'm going to add in some yellow. And let's add in some of that red. Ooh, that was awful thick. Just gonna let it kind of mingle around. Now I need to balance that out with some yellow. Oh gosh, too much yellow. So now I'm gonna go back to the blue. So now let's take a piece of paper. Let's see what we're gonna get. Oh, guess it would help. Would help if it was over here, right? Okay, let me zoom in. Okay. Let's see. Let it zoom in. Let me zoom in some more. And okay. Let's see where we're at with this. So I'm looking at the image, and believe it or not, I got pretty close on those grays. But honestly, please look closely at those grays. Are they all even? Absolutely not. I'm going to pick up, add some blue over here. Look what happens when I add just a little bit more blue. So now my gray is a little bit more on the blue side, but there are some areas where Those grays are a little bit more on, they lean towards yellow. So there we can see, got some of them yellow, some areas are blue. Let's make a little red area. Now I have some of those grays that are red. Look at how beautiful they are, honestly. You cannot get that from Payne's Gray. So I'm just like letting them all just kind of mingle together. So out of those three colors, created these just stunning grays. They're beautiful. They have life in them. They don't look flat and boring. All right, I think I'm okay. So let's zoom out. I think about right there is gonna be good. Let's see, how am I going to handle this? I have a center there. Can you see how like the red has kind of made its own little area, and I've got some yellow and a blue over there, but I may have to pick up some blue here and there, some reds or some yellows. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm going to address, let's put that there. Honestly, I cannot believe I haven't dripped into that background once. I don't even know how I accomplished that. Okay, so I've got some paper towels to kind of protect this area a little bit. So I want to, let's see, I want to get this petal. You know what? Maybe this petal instead, because that way I can work my way around. Okay, can I go in anymore? I can, okay. So I think I'm gonna use my number 2. And I am gonna wet this little area. I'm gonna try to avoid that little highlight. Now, as I'm wetting the shadow area, look carefully at it. Do you notice how the grays up in this area, right up in here, are a little bit lean more towards the yellow side? Kind of like right there. And then as you come down, those grays get a little cooler. Lean it so that you don't see so much reflection. And that's what you want. You want that variation of those grays. So this is gonna go off just a hair there. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm just gonna pick some of that gray up. I'm not paying attention to whether or not I'm in the red area or the yellow area, because now it's all kind of mingling. So I just have a basic gray. So I'm just dropping. I have to pick up some more water. Didn't quite have enough water on the paper. Let's get some more water on there. Just kind of moving it around. And once the shine goes away, you can see that I kept it a little bit more towards the yellow there. In fact, maybe pick up a little bit of blue and drop it right there. I shouldn't say blue, I should say a bluer area. So right as it gets down into that area, you know, how about I even drop in now a little bit of red. And so now we've got some of our grays. Now I'm going to come over onto this area, and I'm definitely wetting it. I'm just kind of coming outside. Lift that up a little bit. And I'm going to drop in Let me mix all this up, because all the colors are starting to separate now, which is also wonderful. So that stops your mix from looking just too flat. I'm going to pick up some of this red and move it over into that area. So now I have it's a little bit more red, maybe even some more. Okay. And again, I'm pulling back towards the edge of the leaf. Okay. I'm going to back out a little bit. You can already see that it's starting to dry. So now I'm going to come up into that area. Okay. Let it focus. There we go. So how am I going to address this? I think what I'm going to do is okay, so sometimes this happens and I even have to kind of give it a thought. I have two options. I can wet this whole area and then very carefully add the grays right along there and let it just gently blend out. But then my concern over here is for that edge. And then right in there. But I think if I go ahead and address this first and let this area where the water soaks in, and then I can go back in, and I think I'm fairly certain that I can add that color in without it spreading too much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to go warm up my tea and go use the bathroom. So I will be back. And this way you can just at least kind of look at that. I'm back. I needed that because I'm using such light colors. You know, my water, I have 2 water containers over there, so yeah. I didn't need to empty it as much, but helped to kind of stand up and get my eyes away from the painting and heat up my tea, and all is well now. So I'm looking at it and I think everything is looking really, really good. Let's see. Oh, Shilpy had to leave. Sorry, Shilpy. Hopefully I'll talk to you soon. And Shannon is saying, Sarah B said, you're an incredible teacher. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and talent. I'm sure it's a testimony of the kind of person you are. That was so sweet of you. Thank you. That was really nice. Although there's been times where I've you know, we all have our little meltdowns. I've had a couple of them on occasion, but thank you. That was very kind of you. Okay, let's see. Let's go ahead and work on that petal. That one I was a little concerned about because I have kind of some hard edges and some soft blends. So I have decided to wet everything except for that light edge. Okay, here we go. And I'm going to go right along there and try to avoid that little areas as much as I can. Okay. So for this one, I'm not going to use a big brush. I'm going to use a little brush because I want to have a little bit of control over where those grays are going. A smaller brush is going to help me do that. Okay. So I'm going to start right along that edge. And I'm not worried too much about any of these, you know, as I'm pulling the color down, again, just kind of aiming it toward the bottom. And let's see, let's get some with a little bit more red in it. So I'm just trying to vary this a little bit. I'm rinsing my brush, have water on it. Notice there's a little bit more red in it up here. So I'm going to grab a little bit more of that. And just a little bit more. Again, just kind of drawing the color down into that little corner there. And so far, so good. I'm kind of happy with that. How that shadow's looking. And you'll be able to see that a little bit better as soon as it starts getting that sheen off. Although, you know, I guess it's actually really important that you kind of see that sheen. So you can see what it looks like as it starts to dull down a little bit and flatten out. So I'm just softly kind of blending it. And okay, so now I'm going to come over here I'm going to get a little bit more. Oop, that might be too much. Okay. Let's go. Start along this edge because I want to kind of stay away for now on this edge because it's kind of it's got a nice edge to that shadow. So I'm just drawing the color upwards. Grabbing some more blue. I'm going to come back over here and let that dry a little bit more. Just add a little bit more color along that shadow edge. But isn't it lovely how you can see all the different colors in the shadow? Realize this needed to be a little bit darker on that edge. Okay, now it's right at the perfect moment. So I'm gonna come back over here. Now I can get closer to that edge. Maybe a little bit more red. And now up in here, it's a little bit more blue. So I want to make sure I've got a really blue area. So actually I'm going to pull some of that gray out and just get in a little bit of blue. And look how it kind of comes over into that shadow right there. Maybe I need, and see how my my gloss, my shine starting to disappear a little bit. So now I got to be careful. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this. Actually, before I dry it, let's get this part of the, it's not quite enough red. Now that looks a little better. As long as I still have a little bit of a shine on there. Now I'm just adding in some more yellow. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and dry it. Okay, so I'm going to leave that alone. We've got that little shadow there, which may need to be darkened a little bit. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. But this time I'm going to do it dry, just real watery mixture. up a little bit red down right in there. And then a little bit more of that blue shadow right down in there. Okay, now let me get my big brush. Okay, and I'm actually going to stick with this brush. Make sure my paint is very watery because it's very light right in this area. So now I'm just kind of rinsing my brush. Might come over here, get a watery mix. Maybe a little bit more yellow right in this area. And now back to a little bit more blue right along in here. There we go. More blue. More pink. Very nice. Maybe a little bit more red. I'm just going to pick that up. And maybe a little tiny bit more. There. And I think I need a little bit of that gray right over in here. Okay, moving on. Let's dry this a little bit. Zoom out. Look at how forward that petal looks. Now that we've added color in there, that petal looks like it's really coming right out of the paper. So I think I'll do that next. Aw, Shilpi, thank you. You're so kind. It was very sweet of you. Okay, so now let's zoom back in. Look at those nice, soft, subtle blends that are right up here in this area. You can see how softly that blended out. I didn't get my hard line there, but I'll address that here in a bit. We're getting close. So now what I'm going to do is I don't need that giant of a brush. I don't even need my 6. What I need is my number 4. Now, this area is kind of like has a green tint to it. So I feel like it's okay that I add in some yellow in there and then go right over it with some of the blue. Let's see, let's go even more. Okay, now let's pick up some of that beautiful blue-gray right there. Try to get a little bit of a clean blue and drop it in right along here. Ooh, and definitely right along up into that little area. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit more yellow. Now for the red. I'm going to let that sink in a little bit and come on down to that leaf and just do something in there while I'm waiting for that water to sink in. So let's just throw some yellow on there. Now let's throw a little bit of that blue. Okay, I'm looking in it, and the gloss, you can probably see that too. The gloss is just starting to leave. So that's a good thing. I can just about start dropping in the red. But I have time to just kind of mess around down in here. This little leaf. Okay, I think it's pretty close to being okay for me to add some red. So I'm going to do there just what I've done before. And it's going to be some thick red, maybe over here into a little bit of, yeah, actually, it's more of this reddish bluish. Okay, so I'm going to more red. More blue again. Coming in towards that little area. And a little bit right there. There's just like all these little hints. Didn't like that one right there. Just spreading it out a little bit. goes kind of all the way up into that little point there. And a couple down in here. Just lightly touching the paper. Now I just rinsed my brush and I'm just throwing some water on there. Now I'm going to go right up underneath this little, that little curve. And pick up some yellow and blue. That's what I'm seeing under there, under that little lip. Actually seeing a little bit more yellow down in here, so I'm adding some yellow. Now, some very, very watery red right along this edge. Just kind of dropping just a tiny, tiny bit of color. And then right under that edge, well, that could have been better, but I don't think that's that's too bad. Just dropping in. I just feel like it needs a little bit more blue. And that might help it a little bit. And right under there, just trying to build a little bit of form. Okay, I'll leave that alone. And I think I'll jump back on to that little guy and fix it a little bit. Needs to have the saturation upped. Now I'm going to add blue. And then I think, what time is it? 4:15. Or at least it's 4:15 for me. And I think what I may do, you know, I guess I could have just really forged ahead and just left out a lot of these, a lot of the details. But you know what? For me as a painter, and I know everybody's different, so I'm just going to stop for right now. And I'm going to say that the details for me are extremely important. And I thought it was really important for you to really see, start to finish, how I get all those effects. I know on my other tutorials I leave out some of the details, but for some reason there's just something about this Magnolia that just really gets to me. And it just feels like it's so calm and just this moment in time, and you're just capturing this, and within a few days those are going to be all crumpled up and gone, and the whole tree is going to be covered with magnolia leaves. And so I really want to get in every little bit of detail that I can. So here's what I think I'm going to do. So tomorrow I have to go get my eyes checked. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and finish this and just film it. And that way it's up and it will be done. And if anybody can join, that'll be great. My appointment's at like 2:15, so probably after that, when they dilate my eyes, there won't be a whole lot I can do, but I really want to keep going on this. And I hope that everyone will, finish with me. And yeah, so I will stream again tomorrow morning. Yeah. This was a lot, but you know what? I'm really having a good time. I don't feel stressed, I feel calm, and I feel happy. And honestly, I really think it's showing in the painting. And so let's see what Jeannie is saying. I like that you're taking your time and showing us the details. I don't care how many takes this takes to finish. I'm so glad. I really am glad. So I'm going to actually switch back to the front here. So, okay. I'm glad you feel that way. And I hope everybody does, because again, there is something about this Magnolia that I don't want to rush through. And I really want to work on, cleaning up some of those grays. And here, let me hold it up again. And especially right up in this one petal, I want to really get the highlights in there. So I lost a little bit of them, so I want to keep working on it. And I want you really all to see this is exactly how I would have painted on this if nobody had have been watching me and I was all by myself. I would have been completely immersed in all the details. So I'm going to go ahead, and tomorrow morning I will go ahead and I'm just going to keep streaming until eventually we get it done. But I will tell you, I'm pretty happy. I hope everybody can really see how that one gorgeous line right there turned out in that petal. That I really got that all at once. Usually it takes a little while, but I just feel like it's all flowing and it's all looking good, and I really want to see excuse me, how everybody is doing. Mary and JoJo, same thing, and I'm sure she'll be's right along with that, and we'll just keep going. This is what I'm doing. This is where my path is. It's teaching. So if I'm going to do this, let's get it finished. And yes, so I don't know if Shannon H is still with us. She may have had to leave, but let's see. Yep, it's 4:19, so 2, 3. Yeah, so I've been streaming for a couple hours, so I feel like I'm ready for a break. And again, so I'm going to go ahead and work again tomorrow morning. Oh, there's Shannon. May not be contractors, but I'll watch later if not. No problem. I think probably tomorrow will be it. It'll be a couple more hours, and from start to finish, and then that way I'll be fresh and I'll really be able to show you how we're going to clean up those edges around the big petals and make them soft, just like we did on that smaller blossom. So let's see. Oh, and Shilpy, it looks so vibrant. It does, doesn't it? Hard to believe we can do that with 3 colors. It's just so much fun. And Loretta, love this. Thanks again. Your painting is so lovely. Can't wait to tackle mine again. Yes, everybody, keep this in mind. It's paper, it's paint, and it's brushes. And you can always redo it. We're not painting the Sistine Chapel. We're not building a house or a rocket. So, we can keep going, and at least you can rewatch it to go back and see what else you need to do. And so I am going to call it an afternoon, and then I will be back on it tomorrow morning. So I will see everybody, and Shilpy, thank you for watching. And so, and Mary, wow. Thank you for that tip. That was so sweet. How funny that it's my own channel now, and I didn't even know anybody could do that. So, oh my gosh, Mary, thank you so much for that. You're such a sweet person. I think we have a wonderful painting group, and I hope more people find this and can join and see what joy it is in just painting with a simple palette. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to sign off. So thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow morning.